The third part. Mickey's cameraman shifted and refocused. The twinkling, blinking, winking night sky, it blurred behind bodies pouring out of the day-glow clown car, one after the other, dozens of them, hundreds of them. They floated across the screen, a ballet of white trash, dancing, shuffling around about their prima mulatto, Muli, who danced naked except for a pair of dirty tighty-whities, his speckled mulatto skin nearly translucent beneath the light of the moon. Bluish veins throbbing visibly, keeping time with Robin Trower, reverbing from the open doors of the VW, a monstrous speaker that breathed bass. A light day-glow green headband propped up Mooley's kinky blondish white fro, his large bulging eyeballs dangling from his face like a pair of glasses bought from the back pages of an Archie comic. Cousin Daniel Jr. appeared in the screen, leaning back against the car, lighting his 75th cigarette of the night. Bobby was nowhere to be seen. Mickey, he leaned over the front seat to open the door, pushed the seat forward, and got out of the car, his cameraman traveling with him. He wandered about the clearing, stumbled about the clearing, looked up at the soaring pines. He stopped. He stood in the middle of the crossroads. 4 roads at his feet, each going their separate way, shooting out into the darkness of the piney woods, north, south, east, west, earth, air, fire, water. A loud screech from above pierced through the pounding trower, pierced through the ballet, pierced through their new knowledge. A loud screech followed by a second, longer, sharper, louder. Mickey looked up. The dancers stopped and looked up. Daniel Jr. looked up. Maybe Bobby did too, as 2 pterodactyl-sized owls came at each other, outlined by the full moon. 2 violent shadows, talons extended for a vicious handshake until their shadows became one shadow and a whomp. Then the shrieks became silence. Then feathery wings flapped against still, humid air as the shadow became 2 once again, and they separated and departed. Robin Trower, a limp dick of background noise. Mickey, he stood tall, his gaze following both creatures as they flew off, his eyes parting as the great birds made their way in opposite directions, and he spun to follow, feeling the dirt giving way to his shuffling tinnies. Mickey, he felt everything around him. He held his arms out wide, accepting all that would have him, accepting what those felt around him felt. He felt. He absorbed. He breathed feeling. Everyone, everything. His cousins and their posse of degenerates, also more. Mickey, he felt everything. He felt the 2 owls, both the victor and the defeated, the possums and skunks and raccoons lurking in the edges just beyond the periphery of the little clearing, lurking all ricky-ticky-tavi. Mickey, he could feel them breathe. He could feel their little hearts beat. He could feel their cunning, their fear, their curiosity. He could feel their quiet desperation as they searched for sustenance, as they avoided becoming sustenance. He could feel the underbrush, their vines and branches, the way they wound around each other, climbed over each other, trying to find that opening beneath the overwoods that barely sprinkled sunlight. He could feel a total emotional melding with this canopy. He could feel the gentle evening breeze tiptoeing through their leaves. He could inhale their breath. He understood their common tongue, listened in as it sang of water and air and dirt and worms and bugs and birds and bird shit, and murmured memories. Fibrous memories swept up and down, across and over, touching the tingling tips, the root to root. Sensuous images of pollen, tickling pistil and stamen. That feeling, that indescribable feeling, they told Mickey, they said, your language has no words. Your mind cannot grasp this feeling. That feeling, let's say, of your love. And Mickey, he shuddered. and reached out and held on to the scraggly oak sapling that stood next to him in the loam beside the dirt road, looking like a taller hardwood version of Charlie Brown's Christmas tree. He held on to keep from falling, the sapling not quite strong enough to hold him up, but securely tethered to the hard red clay, sort of like a stiff, taut rope. Allowing him to stay atop the spinning earth, the young sapling whispering to him more gibberish. And Mickey held on. He held on like Johnny Quest. The tree, Mickey's young sapling friend, its wiry branches reached out, held on to Mickey, wrapping itself around Mickey's wrists and embedding itself within Mickey's grip into his palms, cutting, slicing. Like in some John Wayne Western, the Duke running the cold steel of his blade along his palm's lifeline. The background music heavy and orchestral. The Duke stared into his eyes, stern and unmoving. Mickey's eyes, his eyes locked right back at the Duke. The Duke, he nodded. Mickey, he spun around and hung on to the Duke, this sapling attached to the ground, to the earth. Mickey, he hung on while the earth, it spun beneath him. Mickey, he hung on, spinning with the earth, faster and faster, spinning so fast his feet began to lift off the ground, and he fought to keep his footing, dragging his heels, stubbing his toes. He could smell the rubber on his calves beginning to burn. And his camera focused. Mickey, he focused, got comfortable with the spin, like an ice skater doing a triple axel, his focus on a singular point. Mickey's world spun around him, but somehow he focused on that single point, maybe multiple single points. His cousin Bobby, one of them. He appeared, leaning against a tree at the edge of the clearing, at the edge of the woods. One arm extended straight out, his hand pressed against the rough bark of the trunk, his other hand holding on to his cock, trying to guide a gushing stream of piss from his weak, dangling meat. Occasionally letting go of his cock to swat at flying insects, real and imagined. Flies, mosquitoes, gnats, moths, letting go of his cock only to piss himself, sprinkle his feet and legs as he scrambled to regain control, grab a hold of his beefy streamer. Rinse, repeat. And then there was a scream. No, more a high-pitched yell, a holler, a loud summons that echoed, bounced in from outside the picture frame, bounced off the dirt in the road, leaving behind a little puff of dust, ricocheted off a tree and back at Mickey, spun him around. A whirring blur of colors and darkness until the frame caught and focused. Daniel Jr. spread eagle on the hood of the Malibu, a lit cigarette between the fingers of one outspread hand, a box of Marlboros in the other. Bobby, where are you, man? Bobby! The bright cherry red of the Malibu glowing beneath the moon, beneath the fish belly white of Daniel Jr.'s own big belly bouncing every time he yelled. Bobby, where are you, man? Bobby! Another voice bounced in from off frame, from the other direction, bounced around, echoed around like an Atari ping pong, blip hitting Mickey upside the head like a feather pillow thrown by a little girl. What? You goddamn made me piss myself. The fish belly jiggled. I can't find my cigarette. I lit my cigarette and I can't find it. It was here, right here. Now I can't find it. Where's my fucking cigarette? Bobby, he turned, shook and swatted at his leg like it had ants crawling up toward the cock, still hand outside his pants. He walked over towards Daniel Jr., tucking his cock back in and stopping in the middle of the crossroads beneath the moon, surrounded by layers of sounds. Crickets chirping, bullfrogs burping, owls still screeching, hounds and coyotes yelping back and forth at each other, redneck tripsters moaning and giggling. Bobby, he slowly stretched out his beefy, muscular arms, extended them far and wide, leaning back, face up towards the moon, mouth open, lips tight, fangs bared, his Panama City Miracle Mile t-shirt stretched across his broad chest. He screamed silently, anguish spilled forth, tainting the air about him. Mickey catching it all in rainbow panavision, broadcasting it to the back of his brain and beyond. Bobby, he exhaled swirls of colorful confusion as he lowered his arms, shrugged his shoulders, and popped his neck. The camera switched. Close up. Daniel Jr.'s lower lip trembled and pouted and nearly raspberried as he spoke, as he moaned, the sweat dripping from the tip of his fat nose down onto a Starsky and Hutch mustache, tinted orange by sun-in, dripped down and splattered onto his cheeks, running through the evening's woodsy dusk, giving one the impression that Daniel Jr. lay on his car weeping. Bobby entered the frame, leaving behind a urine-wet footprint at its edge, stood next to the car, his long scarecrow straw hair standing out like he just rubbed a balloon on it. He said, looking around the car, looking around his own feet, he said, "Don't see it. Where'd you lose it?" Daniel Jr. said, tilting his head slightly, rolling it over onto its side, looking over and up at his brother, he said, "Fuck, man. If I knew where I fucking lost it, I wouldn't be in the shape I'm in." Bobby, he shrugged. He said, "Just trying to help, man. I mean, fuck, you made me piss myself because you can't find your fucking cigarettes." Daniel Jr., he said, "Well, fuck you, man. You're no help." And Bobby, he stepped back, stumbled back one step. He said, pointed at Daniel Jr.'s hand. He said, "Hey, man, there's your fucking cigarette." Daniel Jr., he said, "Where?" Bobby, he said, he pointed, he said, "Here." And Bobby, he stepped forward. He took the lit cigarette out of Daniel Jr.'s hand. He took a long drag off of it. The bright glowing red bud energizing, burning down the length of the fag. He looked down, he said, "Pucker up." And Daniel Jr. made kissy lips, and Bobby stuck the glowing red bud, the lit end of the cigarette, right between those pursed lips, pushed it down until he found tongue, and waited a full 2 count until Daniel Jr. let loose with a tremendous scream of horrifying pain. A hailfire shot into him by the devil himself, drawing Mooley and the dancing beasts around the car in a big semicircle, just in time to catch a backward sprawling Bobby falling off his heels, arms spread like one of the great owls in the night sky, chin pointing toward the moon, eyes exploding with the sudden injection of a reality that was his brother's now empty fist having burst from the car's hood in a powerful eruption, connecting violently with Bobby's head. Mickey stood still off to the side, he and the Duke observing, watching, recording, quietly. The Tripsters regrouped around the fallen Bobby. Leaning over him, Fred thumped the box of Marlboros on his thigh, took out a cigarette, lit it with a big inhale, slowly and smoothly, as if the demons were leaving his body. Daniel Jr., he sat up, his feet perched on the bumper, his elbows resting on his thighs, a fresh cigarette between his fingers, the last bits of the previous one sputter onto the ground. He said, pausing to pick something off his tongue, he said, "He dead?" Jughead said, "Yeah, I think he's dead." Mooley nudged Bobby's boot with the toe of his brogans. Bobby grinned, his busted lip bleeding down into his scraggly 17-year-old beard. He said, "Whoa." Fred, he said, "Nah, he ain't dead."